So now that we're inside, I've got a couple additional questions for you. Let's start by talking about radar detectors. Is there anything about radar detectors that's really important on a motorcycle above and beyond what we would need in a car?
You need to get sound into your helmet. So you do need an audio output at the bare minimum with some cables and speakers. You can do this fairly cheaply for 20 to 30 bucks with Amazon parts. It may not be the most comfortable. I have damaged the detector getting off the bike before by going to get gas and I didn't unplug the cable and I hurt the output jack.
Okay.
So I eventually did upgrade and pay the extra money for a Sena system so I could do the Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a Bluetooth detector. The only one at the time was the V1 G2 with the JBV1 app.
So that's not detector to the Sena, that's detector to the phone and phone to the Sena.
Yes.
Okay.
So I route everything to the phone. The Sena doesn't work well, like it doesn't connect directly to a detector or a lot of other devices.
Mm-hmm.
You need to hook it up, everything to the phone and bring it through the phone.
That's pretty typical.
To the Sena. So it's worked really slick for me that I can run every navigation app, music app, JBV1, ALP. I can get automatic startup with the phone in the pocket with JBV1.
Okay. Yep.
And it'll start my ALP. So all my alerts are ready to go. All I got to do is make sure that my Sena is on and the volume is loud enough for me to hear for whatever speeds I'm driving and earplugs I may be wearing.
Okay, that makes sense. What about as far as like performance on a detector? Is there anything different that you look for compared to a car?
Yes, sensitivity is big for me because I feel a motorcycle is a high value target for Leo to shoot at.
Okay.
A small vehicle looks fast and speedy, and I can guarantee you that that laser or that radar flicks on every time a motorcycle goes by a Leo, right? Your gray Honda Civic, maybe not. A motorcycle blasting along will.
What about if you're like turning the bike? Does that affect off-axis sensitivity?
No, motorcycles lean more. You don't really, at speed, you don't turn, the handlebars don't turn.
Okay.
It's just, they counter steer and they lean to turn. So, I mean, the detector might lean a little bit. I've never had an issue. I get excellent reception on every detector on the bike. Yeah, no issues with that. Sensitivity is very important to me because I feel you're a target, and then bikes are noisy, a lot of them, flashier. You want to get that early warning and drive like a very respectable citizen when you go by that Leo instead of, whoa, I got an alert and break down and he's heard you coming for the last 2 miles down the road, right?
That makes sense. What about as far as other features like arrows? Is that different on a bike compared to a car?
They're not different, but I would say more valuable. You're vulnerable on a bike with your awareness of what's around because you're wearing a helmet and you've got a spot to look out. And you're so concerned with the cars and the traffic in your lanes and what's going on that nobody makes a move to take you down, right? And you're always scanning. But when you're on a bike and if you're looking around for a cop, every cop can see every body motion that you make on a bike and he knows that you're looking for him. When you're looking in your mirrors, most bikes have crummy little tiny mirrors. All they're good enough for is to maybe find a set of headlights to know somebody's in that lane that you don't change, or you can see somebody in the distance with headlights coming down the road. Most of the time you can't identify with accuracy, is that SUV a police SUV or not?
Compared to like a rearview mirror in a car or something.
Yeah, everything's bigger and more stable and more isolated. Like my V-twin motorcycle, the faster I go, the more everything buzzes.
That's
like
true.
even
Okay.
my vision out of my eyes, looking through glasses, looking through a sun visor, looking through my outer visor, looking through a windshield, going fast, everything buzzing. Everything's very low resolution. So at distance, it's hard to pick out a Leo compared to in a car.
I know outside you mentioned like you're looking more for the audio stuff than the visual. Is that a big part of it too?
That is like that's always my first alert, and after I get the audio, I'll go to my heads up visuals and say what's the detector showing me, what's my app showing me, whatever has the information I'm looking for, just to verify that yeah, same old Jeep BSM, I'm good. I'll roll by that. Oh, there he is. I'll roll by him. Carry on.
So I know. Okay, so that makes sense. So as far as different detectors, then I know you've got a lot of detectors that you've tried. Do you have like a couple favorites? What are your best detectors for motorcycles?
Yeah, the V1 G2's got a lot of miles, and I'm fairly satisfied with that one.
How come?
JBV1 actually,
Yeah.
because it's been very stable, Bluetooth connection, reliable. I feel it's very trustworthy. You know, like you develop some trust with some devices that never let you down. They're very consistent. They do the same thing at the same place every time. It earned your trust. JBV1 and V1 G2 has a rock solid Bluetooth connection to my setup, and I trust it to be there. Do I trust myself to have everything else turned on? You're always double checking, triple checking. One of the things I do is I always have music streaming into my headset, so I always know I have a Bluetooth connection to the phone.
That makes sense.
And JBV1 gives warnings if the V1 loses power or you lose internet or this, that. So it does alert you if there's an issue. So as long as I've got music and the detector is on, I'm good.
I know the V1, they designed some of the buttons, like the volume button and the mute button for motorcycle riders to make it easier to press with gloves. Do you find yourself pressing them, or do you use the Sena for muting?
After initial setup, no, I don't really touch it. When I turn power off on the V1, I tend to unplug it, take it off the mount, and stash it away. The volume, I have it like on level 4 on the bike, so I don't disturb people walking by, but all the volume is jacked up in my helmet because I got the earplugs in and stuff, so all the alerts are inside there, and I can adjust my volumes right on the side of the helmet with the Sena for whatever riding condition. Like when you go slower, the noise levels are less. You can turn down your music, you can turn down
Okay. And
the alerts and everything. Yeah, all the audio goes up and down, and the level between alert and music is very good. And I love the feature of where alerts cause music to duck, and
That's nice.
and it comes and then it goes back up in volume when the alert ends, and that's a very nice feature. I like that.
Do you have other detectors that you like running as well, or is it mostly the V1?
The DS1, I've recently started using it, and using the beta highway radar app.
Integration, yeah.
And I'm really enjoying that. I've done a few tweaks to get myself liking the DS1 better. For me, it works better through the app than as a standalone.
Okay. For the same reasons to get the audio in the helmet, or?
Well, yeah, that doesn't change, but I actually customize some BSMs and filtering with the app to make the DS1 quieter in town and get it up to the level that I expect from a top level detector.
So like highway radar using its filtering, not the DS1's filtering.
That's right. And same with JBV1. The detectors themselves sit on the bike, and I don't hear them. They mean nothing. They're just a receiver. All the alerts and sound come from the apps through the phone. So I don't have certain issues with the V1 that I do in my vehicle of, say, initial beeps on alert and have to tune that out with auto volumes and stuff like that. I don't hear the detector on the bike unless I'm stopped.
That makes sense.
So I only have to deal with the app and make the app behave the way I want it to when I'm on the bike.
So I know outside you also pulled out the R7. You were running that one, but that one doesn't have an app. That has like the speaker to the helmet.
I've run that a couple years before I got Bluetooth and the V1 G2, and I just plug into the 3.5 audio output, and I can run up to the little battery-powered speaker and put it inside my helmet, I have another helmet that I've got speakers by the ears. I peeled them out and got these small little stereo speakers. The Unidens are stereo, so get a stereo speaker system, plug it into 3.5. I just leave the end hanging out of my helmet a little bit, so then I take a temporary stretchy cord or coiled cord or whatever, and just plug it in and out of the helmet right there from the detector.
That's convenient.
And away I go, and I got no music. All I have is a detector.
Sure.
Right? So because I have nothing else hooked up other than that cord into there, but that served me well, and it's the least expensive way to get alerts into your helmet. So if you're not interested in music, or you have another way of getting music or navigation into your helmet and stuff, you can use that 3.5 output on any detector that comes with one, and just, they don't even have to be powered speakers. They're just little $15 speakers off of Amazon. You peel the covers off. Like, my other helmet isn't specially designed for speakers, so I had to make them as slim as possible and sneak them in the ear pockets there, right where I could get it, and it works great.
You mentioned for Bluetooth, like you've got music playing, so you can make sure the Bluetooth connection is still there. Is there anything you do with the wired setup to make sure nothing gets unplugged?
Yep, I get nervous a lot of the time because these detectors are usually pretty good and pretty quiet, especially out on the highway ride, and I'll reach over there and I'll go beep beep on the volume button, and like, yep, check, it's good.
What about then as far as the displays for the different radar detectors? Like, I know you mentioned it's mostly audio, but have you found any benefit to different displays on the detectors?
Yes, there's a big difference in displays of detectors. An LCD screen, they've got a flat black matte surface. And a plasma TV screen has a glossy glass surface. Plasmas don't do well in sunshine because of the reflection, and LCDs soak up sunshine and don't give you the glare. So an R7, R8 screen is very visible in most light conditions, whereas say even a Pro-M or a DS1 has a glossy screen.
It does, yeah.
That hampers visibility because of the glare from sunlight.
Okay.
The DS1 has a very big screen, and I found it surprisingly probably the second most visible to like the R7. One's the size. Two, all the detectors when I'm on the motorcycle, I put them on white color, because the white on black is the most visible I found in every conditions. Other colors wash out and stuff like that. So if you got white, once the alert goes, I leave my alert colors on there. Once the alert goes, I can still see some of it, and I'm getting the audio, so I know what's happening. I like the displays for me for having a clock for time. That's something that JBV1 and the V1 G2 doesn't provide me at the time. You try and read that little bar on the top of your phone.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Vibrating down the highway at 80 miles an hour, forget it. Read 1-inch high lettering on a DS1, yeah, I can see the clock.
Okay.
I can see the clock on an R7. I can't even read the clock on my bike down there on the tank. It's a little LCD, tiny little thing. So
that makes sense. What about the speed? Is it similar?
Speedometers, I've used that. I can use the JBV1 display. Certain color combinations work good, and brightness levels, so I can see the speed limit, and I can see my speedometer. I use that a lot. Traveling across the international border to get here, it's great to just say, do this in miles per hour now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there's no conversion or guessing or like, yeah, the sign says 30, but I'm doing 55 because I'm doing it kilometers. I know I've got to slow down 5 kilometers an hour, but it's too much. Why am I doing the mental work? USA units, thank you very much. And away you go, right? And here's a good point is my speedometer is wildly inaccurate. It's about 8-9% out. So the speedometers of all the GPS devices I got keep it. And it's not uncommon, especially on Japanese bikes.
Interesting.
Like a Harley Davidson, you're probably always within 1 or 2 miles per hour.
Okay.
There's certain brands and models. it's been this way like since the 80s when I've had bikes. And I think it's a liability thing that they want you to think you're going that fast, but no, you're not, because we don't want to be sued with the speedometer going the other way, that you were going faster than you thought and you had an accident and blamed it on the manufacturer. The funny thing is the odometers are much closer, so they've done this intentionally, that the odometers are closer for warranty, but the speedometer is wildly optimistic.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So when next guy says, yeah, I was doing 250K on my Japanese bike, well, how fast was that really? Did you GPS record it? Right? So that's...
What about, you mentioned something about like the frequency displays for the detectors, like seeing the screens. What about for like the audio, getting that stuff over the audio? Have you noticed differences between different detectors for their tones or verbal announcements?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty satisfied with what I've got. I've custom tuned JBV1 and highway radar. Mostly, don't bash me for this, but give me Uniden tones. One, because I've got so many detectors now, the more of them that got the same tone that tell me that it's Ka band, the less thinking I got to do.
It gets confusing when you keep switching brands, yeah.
And like, I have real trouble with Escort, especially on a bike, hearing the difference between K and Ka.
Really?
And the voice, I cannot hear what it's saying. It's too low of a tone and muted. All alerts, I like to have a higher pitch, very distinct tone for the highest alert stuff. The K band stuff, I can take a softer tone and figure out what's going on when it goes off. That's changing in my home province there, because there's more and more deadly K band showing up every day. But Ka band, I like to have my very favorite, distinct high-pitched tones that break through the other sounds. I don't want it confused with music, road noise, anything else. I want the first chirp to know that that's on the binders type of stuff. And by the second chirp, I know how fast that alert is of how hard I'm squeezing the binders, right? So JBV1, yeah, I use the Uniden chirp, and same with highway radar for the DS1.
Interesting.
And of course the Unidens,
it's actually a good idea if you like the tone. Yeah, you just use it with any brand of detector.
And the K bands, I stick with the default K bands on the detectors, but the Ka, I definitely pick one or two of my very favorites that I cannot confuse with anything else.
Makes sense.
And volume level makes a difference. And the tone of to pierce through, like I said, you got lots of noise, wind noise, engine noise, earplugs in. You got to know that first one, that the first chirp is important.
What about then moving on to laser jammers? I know you've got the ALP installed, and then we just recently did, you guys last night, you did some TPX testing. Yeah. So let's talk first about ALP. That's the one that you chose as your main one. So tell me a little bit about why you're running that one.
One was I have a system on my truck, and I was familiar, and I wanted parts compatibility, because I was thinking, am I going to pirate black TX and put them on the truck, or back and forth?
Parts between, yeah.
So I've got some backup if one goes. I'm familiar with it. I got the app. I like the way I can use the app to program it, download firmware updates. When I go outside and I've got two ALPs, and I can just turn on the truck, turn on the app, and update it, and I can walk over to the bike, and I can do that anywhere, anytime, using the data on the phone. I think that's a great convenience.
And then you've got the same setup with the audio, just like JBV1 or Highway Radar, where the audio goes straight to the helmet?
Yeah.
Do you use, I know you've got the ALP alert LED. Do you use that as well, or is it?
Yeah, if you look on the bike, I've snuck it up from under the seat. The cable is a little short from the CPU, from where I have in my saddlebags the CPU. It doesn't reach my handlebars.
Okay.
So I snuck it up the center of the tank, and I put a little tank pad protector there and some tape, and up underneath, and I got sticking up just by my speedometer on the tank, and it's bright enough I can see it, and it reflects on my windshield a little bit when it goes off, so I get a little bit of a heads up. But most of the time it's going to be audio is my primary source with that. And I do like when I turn on the Sena and JBV1 turns on, or highway radar turns on, and I auto start the ALP Connect with those apps, you know, I get the audio alerts from ALP that, you know, it's on.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll have the parking mode set for level 3 or something. I can get close to the back of a car, beep, beep, you know, and I know it's operating.
Oh, that's a good
You
idea.
know, or I stick my hand in front of the RX sensor there and you know, beep, beep, yeah, we're good to go. Everything's functional, and you know, it gives, ALP gives alerts if something's not correct, which is something I find really important.
Yeah, we've been running into that issue with some of the other
Yes.
jammers we've been testing. What about the TPX? I know you recently installed that one and you had a chance to test it as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I was really excited to test that. It's a motorcycle specific one. The front seems to be pretty darn good, pretty solid with the two sensors up front. The back, we had some punch throughs with the Dragon Eyes. All the other guns were good. I was impressed with both systems. On the motorcycle, I deliberately tried to make them fail and lose jamming ability while I was under fire.
So how
and
did
I
you
couldn't.
how did you try to make them fail?
Well, in a motorcycle, you've got a dynamic vehicle. You're leaning, you hit the brakes, you get a lot of nosedive, and there's so much emphasis on aiming of heads and get the angle just right and this and that.
Yeah.
My fear is I get hit, I hit the brakes, my nose dives 3 or 4 inches, and I'm busted.
Yeah. Jammers are aimed down.
You know, or I'm coming around a corner and I'm leaning, or I'm changing lanes. You know, how much leaning, motion, braking does it take before you lose jamming ability? And apparently, maybe I'd have to do a nose stand or a wheelie or something because you know, without somebody phoning the police on the street doing the testing, I couldn't break the jamming ability of it.
Really?
It was
So it's
no
still
different
working,
than
is it?
staying absolutely level and still on the front on both of them. On the rears, there was no different than staying straight too.
And that's both ALP and TPX?
They both did well. We really worked the ALP hard. We did a short test on TPX and we sort of gave up, saying there's no difference what we tested when you're just going straight and steady as when I'm doing swerving, braking. You know, Farius there started giving me instructions. Don't do just braking. Don't do just leaning. Do them both. Do everything. Go crazy. I says, okay, crazy ride coming on. And I'm like this and that. And then people are starting to look at you on the sidewalks because the weather was nicer out looking. It's like, we're stopping that. And he's going, man, I can't punch through. Forget it. We're done. There's no way we're busting through. So I'm extremely pleased with sensors on the motorcycle, and maybe it's physical size and placement of them, and the lack of surface area for the LiDAR gun to lock onto.
I'm guessing basically like headlight, tail light? Or...
Center of mass is going to be always the headlight, and that's where they're going to shoot. That's where they see you from distance. How far, you know, like what you got 24 inches up or down, and you've got 24 inches wide. So really you got one 24-inch circle basically of solid stuff to shoot at. So it's got to be part of the target size, and it's very well protected. One sensor on the back on the TPS was weak on the Dragon Eyes, and we found the Dragon Eyes are extremely strong guns to defend against.
And I mean, it makes sense. The ALP, you can do 2 heads in the rear. TPX is designed for just one, and for Dragon Eye, it definitely helps to have that second head.
Absolutely. We've seen that on several systems on cars and vehicles.
All right, so next let's go ahead and move on and talk about mounts for your radar detectors, your phones, all that kind of stuff. Do you have any favorite types of mounts or mounting solutions or brands, or what would you recommend?
It's hard to recommend one specific thing to do for everyone.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
You know, bikes are more varied than radar detectors and cars. There is, every bike model has different handlebars, different fairings, different ergonomics, different rider positions. You know, like some people have absolutely no good place to mount something, and other people have the world to mount it on. I got a Ram magnetic mount for me, and it's got the tall arm because I had to get it up above some metal in my fairing. Now my phone, I just recently got the Ram X mount for the phone so that I could mount the two side by side as a heads-up display in front of me, and now I can reach through and get my key that's way up front by the windshield in the center, where before I had center mounted radar detector, and it was a pain.
Makes
you know,
sense.
looked sort of funny, and I had the phone off to the side, and it would still take your eyes off the road to the phone. I suggest good strong builds out of aluminum. Like even my cheaper one that I had down the handlebar was aluminum. What you have for a dash mount in your car isn't going to hold up to a motorcycle. They should all have a for their phones especially, as a rubber safety band that not only clamps it, but you've got a safety latch that goes around the phone to stop a wind or vibration blowing it. Try and keep them behind some sort of cover, some sort of fairing, windshield, something on the bike. I mean, you get out there on the highway and you pull on your super sport naked bike and you're doing 120 miles an hour in 3 seconds. That phone is like a, try and hold your hand up in the wind, okay? There's 200 pounds of force trying to rip your hand off. Same with your phone. So you better have some secure mounting, especially when you don't have wind protection for it. I like the windshield and the wind protection. It's also rain protection, because driving rain in the wind penetrates, gets into everything. So the better you can shield something, the better.
That makes sense. So I guess then, like, wrapping up, if we had to, what would be your recommendations for your favorite radar detectors? I know different people are going to want different ones. So maybe a couple favorite radar detectors, favorite laser jammers, favorite mounts, favorite apps, etc.
I don't hesitate, but the V1 G2 with JBV1 is my go-to right now. And it may not be forever, but it's had a lot of development, the app. It's very secure with the Bluetooth, gives me a lot of information, and it has a lot of control to custom tune the G2 for my environment and how I want it to behave and how I want it to deliver the alerts to my headset. Just recently with the DS1 and just learning the beta highway radar, I can do much the same thing. So I'm sort of mirroring what I've done between the two, and they're both becoming quite decent on it. I don't recommend buying a little Bluetooth dongle and sticking it into an R7 or something.
Really? I thought that would be a good idea, but it's not.
You can't hook that dongle up to your phone to get the alerts through. You might, if you're lucky, be able to hook it up to the Sena, but now you've interrupted the flow from your phone, right?
Like I thought those were designed to connect
there's
to your
a
phone.
nasty circle of stuff, and they're not all compatible. Some people get it work. If you read the forums, there's a whole list of trial and error and failures of people trying to get sound into your Cardo or Sena headset.
Sure, people ask about that all the time, and I'm like, I don't know, Bluetooth something, headset wired.
It's a whole day's topic of trying to figure out how to get sound into your headset. And the best thing I could say right now is just make your phone do everything and send your phone to your headset. Some high-end bikes, like say a Goldwing or Harleys or something like that, with a whole entertainment center, have other options. You've got GPS navigation and stuff right in there, and Bluetooth in your bike. So you can sometimes you can send sound, you can plug it in or send Bluetooth into the bike system. The bike system sends it to your Sena.
Okay.
Right? Because they're designed to communicate with these cordless headsets, these Bluetooth headsets and stuff like that. So then your trick now is to get your detector sound to communicate with the bike system before the bike can send it into the Sena. So you're just replacing the phone with the bike system.
When you say Cardo versus Sena, are those like two different brands that do the same
Yeah,
thing?
Sena is a well-known brand for it, and Cardo is their major competitor. They're
Correct.
both really good.
Okay.
I've heard some really good things about Cardo. I've never done it. My system is just a tiny little 10R, so it's like for a super sport bike or something like that, little tiny thing on the side. Some people have the big ones with the big antennas. You get more range, more intercom stuff. Like these are the guys that can talk to each other.
Sure.
With a walkie-talkie like intercom to each other on the highway for a mile or two.
Gotcha.
Mine probably has a few hundred yards of reception compared to that, just because of the physical size of antennas and stuff. Still capable of communicating with them, but you lose some range and ability. But I don't ride with anyone, don't know anyone with another one of it. This is just my audio entertainment alert system for my motorcycle, because my motorcycle is a stripped down, bare bones, minimalist cruiser with a windshield and bags on it.
Mm-hmm. What about then like mounts? Do you have favorite mounts for phone, radar detector, all that stuff?
Yeah, RAM mounts, strong aluminum ones. I really like the magnetic one for the radar detector. Quick and easy and secure. I've got no problems with that. I haven't actually I've tried my own mounts and stuff like that. I could never be happy, trying to create something out of something that wasn't specifically designed to hold something like a radar detector. So the RAM mount is a magnetic radar detector mount, and it's excellent.
What about then as far as laser jammers? Favorite laser jammer for a bike?
For me, it's the ALP with the notation on it that you've got to have room for all the wiring that comes for a car system. So if you've got fairings and space or storage or something that you can put some of the stuff in, tuck it out of the weather and keep it safe, and run it out to the sensors, then that's the way to go, I think. If you've got a naked bike, which is a sporty stripped down bike with nothing really on it, you're really limited. You've got to find a way to get this under the seat or under the frame somewhere and stuff. I don't see it happening on most bikes like that. So the TPX might be a better solution there, with thinner wiring, less cable. They're not much difference in actual CPU size, but it's all the wiring and how firm and heavy the ALP wiring prevents you from storing it in a very efficient manner, because you've got big coils of heavy wire that you've got to put somewhere, right? Where the TPX, you could probably wrap it up into a little ball, your extra, and tuck it into a little spot on your bike.
Yeah, I've heard of people actually like shortening the cables, but I think that does void the warranty. If you want to just like shorten the cables and like resolder them or something.
Yeah,
I've heard of people like install.
That's not my wheelhouse to buy an expensive system like that and chop the cable up.
Yeah, but I've heard
it's not going to happen.
Heard of people doing that if you're comfortable with cable soldering and stuff. But
I've just gone the route that it doesn't need to happen, and I've got longer cables. If my wife says enough of you in the motorcycle, I can pull it out and I can put it in her car.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, that was a lot. So tons of awesome information. So thank you for taking the time to sit down and kind of go over all the stuff on motorcycles. I didn't know like pretty much any of that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate the invite, and I'm here in the infamous Vortex layer, right? It's awesome.
Cool. Well, this is a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.